had left on her own. That's what her parents said.
Well, there's a period in a young person's life in the Amish that's called Rumspringer, where they get to go out and experience English life and then it's up to them whether they come back or not. And what I found interesting was that apparently about 90% of them come back, which I thought was pretty amazing.
Once they got a taste of the wildlife.
But I think that if they don't come back, they have to give up on their family. I don't think they can have it both ways.
They're basically shunned.
Well, they just basically have to live on their own from that point forward. And you have to realize that they've been sheltered their whole lives, and they haven't been educated all that well either.
Yes, so, they usually only go to the 8th grade in school. So,
and what did you think, Kathy?
Well, I liked the book. I thought it was very well written. I liked her character development quite well. I thought that it wasn't a very long book.
No, it was a quick read.
But she packed a lot of information and a lot of action in the book. So I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the story. And I really enjoyed reading about a place, like you said, that is so familiar.
Yes, definitely. At the beginning of the book, she has in the foreword, I want to see what you guys think of this that was in the foreword. We are talking about a man, after all, not a superhuman, not a ghost. And then it says, ... I was wrong. Right there, she told us who did it.
Not who did it, but to look elsewhere.
Because as soon as I read that, I was like, aha! She was letting us know that, dun, 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 a woman was the killer.
So
I didn't really pay attention to that saying, but I would have thought, oh, maybe not a ghost, but maybe a superhuman strength, or...
I thought maybe, just because she had been asphyxiated, I thought possibly one of the boys had done it. Mm-hmm. One of the young boys that found her. But that very quickly, that one was only 8 years old. I can't see a grown woman not being able to fight off an 8-year-old. But what did you think of the storyline with Elizabeth and Ezra?
Hubba, hubba.
Yeah.
I think we're all big Ezra fans.
I'm a fan of the mule.
He was described as, if you ever saw the movie Witness with Harrison Ford, it kind of reminds me of Alexander Goodenough, who played Daniel.
Yeah. He was worth watching.
Ezra certainly sounded like the perfect man.
I didn't realize Viggo Mortensen was in that movie.
Yeah. He was one of the Amish
another
guys.
one.
Yeah.
Moses.
Yeah, but he didn't look good in that movie. They didn't make him.
He looked good. That man looks good.
But anyway, even though it's not very far from many people, it's like being in a different world.
It's like going back 100 years.
Yes. And Elizabeth, even though she grew up in that area and then moved away, she became immersed in that world because of Ezra and also because of the crime that was committed.
She was the one in the police department who wanted to dig further into the Amish. She felt like
the answer was there.
Exactly. But the police department was kind of hands off because they were wary of offending the Amish.
Well, the deacon went to the police commissioner to have her removed from the case.
Eventually, yeah.
Because she was getting too close.
Yeah. Well, he also didn't like all her questions.
And he didn't like her.
And her influence.
She was a woman.
Well, her bad influence. She's a woman and she's not Amish, not married, talking to married men and that sort of thing.
She was vamping for Ezra.
Oh, that's right. She was seducing Ezra in his buggy.
Even though Elizabeth worked for the police department there, it was only the 6th homicide in Lancaster County. So it's not like she was real busy when this murder happened, but I think her heart went out to these girls where
Well, it was just one girl at first.
Yes,
they didn't
at
find out
first.
about Katie for quite a while.
Yeah.
She identified with Jessica, I think,
Absolutely.
because Jessica was looking forward to moving out of Lancaster and moving to New York just like Elizabeth had.
And then Katie was a young Amish girl who was, according to her parents, planning on leading the Amish lifestyle.
So that's why they didn't look
And that's
for her.
why they didn't look for her. And it took her younger sister to show Elizabeth the answer to that dilemma.
Yeah. Kathy and I were fortunate when we met Jane at a restaurant that Jane was very gracious to take us up to her farm and take us on a tour of her barn where some of the scenes were based on her barn, like Katie's hidey hole where she kept her possessions. And I was so glad that she showed that to us because it was not what I pictured.
No, not at all. I was picturing a much smaller space.
So we took some pictures, so we're going to add those to the website.
So
we said that it was a woman that murdered the girls. So you want to reveal who that woman was?
And that woman was Miriam Lapp, the wife of the Deacon Aaron Lapp. Probably one of the reasons he had Elizabeth removed from the case.
Yep.
She whacked her with a frying pan and then...
And I think that first murder, I know, was not planned. She did not say, I'm going to kill this woman.
It was anger and jealousy because Katie was trying to get Aaron to leave Miriam.
Because they were having an affair.
And they were having an
Well,
affair.
back up. Actually, Aaron was sexually abusing
Since she
Katie
was 12.
since she was 11 or 12 years old.
Right.
Where Miriam blamed Katie for her husband's indiscretions.
Right.
Well, I think that happens in a lot of societies, unfortunately, that it's the woman's fault and the man
just stands there.
But she wasn't even a woman. She was an 11-year-old girl.
But
yes.
An Amish woman, she becomes a woman a lot faster than our society does.
Right. They marry very early. But Katie was going to get her own. So she was fighting back at Aaron.
Right.
Leave your wife and come with me.
And she was going to sell it to tabloids.
And she was trying to get proof. She was going to get $25,000 by selling her story to a tabloid.
She set up a camera on her cell phone to try to blackmail him.
Yes. And the cell phone was missing, and that's what Elizabeth Harris finds in the barn, is the cell phone that had been missing. She did not see the evidence because the phone had been dead, but that was...
And Jessica and Katie had become friends when they worked together at a local farm
Amish
store.
market.
Yeah, Amish market.
And they were planning to leave together,
Right.
and that's why she was worried because Katie disappeared.
And she was a true friend. She really was very worried about her and concerned about her being missing. She did put in the missing persons report.
And Jessica grew up in a family where she didn't have a whole lot. Her mom was upset, but probably should have been a little more upset than she was.
She
so
just
that's what
figured
made it kind of threw some guilt in a different direction. You didn't know what to think.
Well, she just said she figured she was off with a boyfriend or a boy. And so apparently she had kind of loose morals in her reputation.
So Miriam took matters into her own hands because she knew that Katie and Jessica
came to her looking for
Yes.
information on Katie, and that's when she had to go because
she had to get rid of Jessica too.
She killed her the same way she did Katie. Now, Katie was killed in October when the river was high. So when she dumped her in the river,
she was found on a small island in the center of the Susquehanna River, but she was completely unidentified and was sent down to our neck of the woods, where we visited in the Baltimore City medical examiner's office as an unidentified.
Yes. So they held her there until someone could identify her, and of course nobody was looking for her, so she just laid there.
We've talked a lot about that we know these areas, but Kathy did a little research, and she's going to tell you a little bit about this area if you're not familiar with Pennsylvania.
Of course, takes place in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in January through March of 2014. And Lancaster is located in south central Pennsylvania, which is 34 miles southeast of Harrisburg, 70 miles west of Philadelphia, 55 miles northeast of Baltimore, which is kind of our hood, and 87 miles northeast of D.C. And it's the county seat of Lancaster County. There are about 60,000 people in the city of Lancaster and about 508,000 in the metropolitan area. It was founded in 1729 and was originally called Hickorytown. This is what I found pretty interesting. It was the capital of the United States for one day.
Oh, yes, I have read that.
On September 27th, 1777, when the Continental Congress fled Philadelphia after it had been captured by the British in the American Revolution. From there, the new government moved on to York, Pennsylvania. Then Lancaster was the capital of Pennsylvania from 1799 until 1812, after which the capital moved to Harrisburg. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild. Nothing's stuck there, apparently. There are a few interesting facts about it. The very first paved road in the United States, opened in 1795, was the former Philadelphia and Lancaster Turnpike, which makes up part of the present-day U.S. Route 30, which features prominently in the book. The Amish farm where Jessica was found was off of Route 30. Common products manufactured in Lancaster after the Revolution, which readers might recognize from history class, were the Conestoga wagon and the Pennsylvania long rifle. Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition was educated in survey methods in Lancaster in 1803. The first F.W. Woolworth Company store, known as the Five and Dime Store, opened in 1879 in Lancaster. The first battery-powered watch was released in 1957 by the Hamilton Watch Company. In the 1920s, the Rada Candy Company of Lancaster invented the ubiquitous Easter confection made of marshmallow and sugar in the shape of baby chicks. And I'm sure everyone recognizes that as Peeps.
Used to be my favorite.
So that's what Lancaster is famous for.
And it's funny that they have the first paved road, since now that it's not that cars don't drive there, but they have a lot of buggies that still travel those roads.
You know, there are a lot of trucks and cars, too.
Yeah, very true.
Thank you, Kathy. That was very interesting.
You know, I did want to tell you a little something about Jane that I also read in the beginning of the book that I found very interesting. Jane was actually raised by a conservative fundamentalist minister, and yet she considers herself a free-spirited liberal at her core, and the conflict still plays out in the things she admires, the things she fears, and much are what's given voice in this novel. So I thought that was very interesting. We talked to her a little bit about that in the interview.
Now, unfortunately, we found out that she's no longer writing this series. Well, we wanted to say something that we learned from reading this book. Kathy?
I learned that the Amish are now using cell phones. Not every day, not like we do, but in case of emergency, they do have a cell phone handy.
I learned that mules are barren. You need a horse and a donkey to make a mule, that mules cannot mate on their own.
Poor things. And I learned, don't turn your back on an Amish woman if she's got an iron frying pan in her hand.
And I think we all learned that we wished Ezra was a real person.
Oh, yeah. We'd all be up in